G'day, listeners, and welcome to another episode of the Scouting Australia podcast, powered by Australian Property Scout Buyers Agency. I'm your host, Sammy Gordon, and today, guys, we're back, and we're back with a vengeance. We're back with another myth-busting episode. We know you guys love the myth-busting episodes. We go through a lot of different things relating to a very specific topic that is spoken about commonly. Now, today's episode, we're going to be dissecting why rent money is dead money, or the myth that rent money is dead money, and we're going to see if we're going to bust this thing or prove this thing correct. Now, in the blue corner, we'd like to welcome from the dirty south, Mr. Jimmy Ibrahim, mate. Welcome back to the show. How are you, mate? How are you?
Sammy. Good day, Sammy. Very well, doing well. Great to be back up here, and I love this topic, actually. This is getting a lot of traction. Get a lot of people talking about this and bringing it up, and so great to see all the boys here on the podcast and keen to hear their thoughts.
100%, man. I think it's a cool thing to sort of dissect. I know we've spoken about rent vesting, not even that long ago, but we've spoken about it a bit, especially over the last 12 months. And I think it's a really prudent thing, and it kind of came off the back of some of those recent episodes and people going, oh, but isn't rent money dead money? And fucking sending through a few videos and stories and all the rest of it. And I really want to dissect it and bust this myth. And so we also have, from the West, he's back, Mr. Naaman Ward. Mate, welcome back to the show.
Great to be back, and still getting those velocity points along the way. So it's all ticking along.
So Virgin's still good, mate. Virgin's still good.
It got me here safely.
That's good, mate. That's good. No dog policy, not like just Star and Jimmy. Mr. Teeuwsen, looking good, mate. Looking good, looking sharp. You still dropping the kegs, mate? Looking good.
Yeah, trying to get back into it. Lose some kid weight. So dad bod, be gone. But still going well.
What'd you say?
Dad bod, be gone.
Dad bod, be gone. Yeah, Jimmy, wave the wizard's wand.
Jimmy's wand out.
I love it. Now, from not so much further away, we've got from the northern New South Wales reaches of the beautiful Kingscliff beaches, Mr. Brendan Geoghegan, mate. Welcome back, buddy. Good to have you back on.
Yeah, good to be back. Keen to rip into this one. It's a touchy subject, so we'll see where it goes.
Ooh, touchy. I believe it is. It's one of those things, mate, that a lot of people like to throw it around. The great Australian dream. You got to buy the primary residence. You got to own it. I think this is a saying touted by many parents out there trying to look after their kids, trying to do the right thing. But at the end of the day, it is a stupid comment to throw out to people if you're trying to seriously build wealth. And that is the thing that I want to dissect and unpack today, is really why we are busting this thing, why we're talking about it, why rent money is dead money is a silly saying, and why it's actually good money, and why we should be going out there and utilizing this investment strategy. Jimmy.
Isn't it interesting? Like, this is the one line. This is probably the most common line that you hear, isn't it? It's
as a young'un, for sure.
100%. But the question now, Sammy, is do Gen X and millennials really believe this, that rent money is dead money? They start to question this because they're transitioning. They don't want to give up their lifestyle and so forth, and obviously the complexities of owning your own home and so forth, and even the challenges to get into your home. So I think this is there's a lot of pressure against this notion, and it's slowly dissipating. And I'm keen to hear, Lukey, you're a young whippersnapper.
You're saying more people are doing this, or not opposed to this, or happy for this, or what?
I think for, the baby boomers, everyone would say rent money is dead money. But I think the millennials are starting to say, well, no, that's rubbish. They're actually questioning that, right? Whereas for me, my parents would be saying, yeah, no, rent money is dead money. And you'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe it is. You're not really sure. But I think millennials now, not wanting to give up their lifestyles, I think there's a lot of pressure against this notion. Just even if they didn't invest, they'd just be like, nah, what are you talking about? I'm not going to risk everything.
I think where we need to dive into with this as well, right? I think one of the really key things here, and for all of you guys listening, there's probably a really good chance that you really embrace the idea of rent vesting, right? And that rent money is dead money and you rent vest. I think the piece that we need to unpack here is the fact of people who rent but they don't invest. Okay, I rent because I can't afford to buy, but do we now bring in the idea of investing? And I think when that is brought into the fold, and when we talk about that, that is when it is a different beast and a different game entirely, as opposed to it being dead money. Lukey, you're looking upset.
Not upset. I mean, you definitely a point I had down. And I will come out in defense of that statement.
Whoa!
Which one? Rent money is dead money in one circumstance. If you are renting, but you have the ability to buy your own house and have no interest in investing whatsoever, couldn't care for it, will never do it, don't want to do it. If you're renting instead of buying your own home, then yes, I agree. Rent money is dead money. If you had the option between renting and buying your own home, and you could definitely buy your own home, you have no interest in investing whatsoever, wealth creation, you're happy, content, then yes, in that circumstance, I agree. It is dead money. But if you are obviously listening to the podcast, you have the concept of investing. You know you're going to do it. You know there's lots of different types of investing out there. So in that case, that's where we're myth busting today. So there is one case where I'm in support of it.
So there's always like a little bit of like left field, you know what I mean? There's always a little bit of like, yes, to an extent that saying can be right if you're not using it properly. But like, this is a cool thing I think about obviously everyone tuning into this episode. And if you've got anyone that's like, they're renting, but they're doing that and maybe they have got the ability to buy their own home, but they're just being lazy, they're buying, they don't want to take on the mortgage or whatever. Or maybe they think it's going to be unaffordable from that side, which it can be for a lot of people. This is where when you bring that investing methodology into the equation, especially when we've got rental income, you can multiply wealth by refinancing equity and then multiplying that into more properties. This can be a real wealth building machine because even though you can buy your primary residence, if you can't buy the primary residence that you really want, doesn't mean you should be buying the primary residence. So this is where if we were able to, and I know we're extrapolating from that episode, that we did not that long ago around rent vesting too. I think this is where it's really cool. Like if you have a good understanding around this is where it can be really, really powerful as a strategy.
And speaking of someone who did own their own home but is now looking at rent vesting, Mr. Naaman himself, this is a real life example. Give us an idea of what happened. What the decision around that from you and your family?
Yeah, so I had this dream. No, I didn't. So I just have to say, again, my wife is very, very understanding, and this is sort of the strategy that we need next in our portfolio to be able to continue to move forward. So I have a very understanding wife who is a big believer in our dreams through property, and by selling the PPOR, using those profits and then investing in other employees. As we know, we refer to as properties as employees and portfolio as a business. So for us, selling that off, then as a lifestyle change, we can move closer to the beach because overall we kind of don't know where we want to set up in life. So we kind of just want to maybe live in different markets and see how that appeals. And we've got young families, so I get the understanding from people that they want that security of a premise or a site to raise a family. But in all honesty, my wife and I, we actually don't know where we actually want to set up and what state. What town.
And this like flexibility that rent vesting gives you as well, man. Like it's crazy, you know what I mean? Like it's the same as when Morgs and I moved up here from New South Wales. Like I didn't know where I wanted to live on the Gold Coast. She was a Goldie girl, but she was from the North End, right? And like we were looking to move in the South End. Didn't really know where we wanted to live that much. And it sounds like Nay's going through the same thing here, where they've got the primary residence, they're living in the primary residence, they've done well out of it, and now they're looking to go through the transition. They're going to bank a profit tax free, and then obviously being able to rent where they want to live but trial it, before they buy it as well. Because you never know. Like you might think you'd love to live somewhere, and I've thought I'd love to live in a few different places, and that hasn't really like ticked my boxes. It's until I think you got to go through a couple of these different little spots until you find something that you really do, and then maybe you do, or potentially from a lifestyle perspective. I know with what you're wanting to do, Nay, like you're still wanting to move around a bit and be a bit of a nomad at the moment, and setting down roots, man, and buying something, potentially at the top end of what you can afford just for the sake of it doesn't really fit what you're doing. You know what I mean as well. So I think so many people, they kind of get stuck in two things. Either they rent and they don't do anything with it, or they just go buy the primary residence at the top of the budget because they feel like that's what they should do. I think it's getting educated around this and making an intelligent decision.
Yeah, and that's the thing as well. Like it's taken me a wee while to open up to this, but we've now understand that that's the best step for us in our strategy and where we're at in our life. And through the support, like my wife has obviously believed in this next step as well. And to be able to move to the locations that we are trialling, to be able to see if we want to live there, it's far cheaper, obviously, to rent in those areas than it would be to own and pay the mortgage. So it's a no-brainer in that regard. So we're actually really looking forward to the next phase, just to trial it out and see where we want to go.
Yeah, brilliant.
It's almost like a lifestyle decision across multiple pieces, you know what I mean? Not just a singular one as well. Moving on from that and actually segueing from that as well, I'd like to go to Brenda because now you're still in the transitionary period. Yeah, you haven't actually even done it. You're going through that transitionary period.
Yeah, yep. It's the next plan of attack. So sort of looking in within the next 3 to 6 months to roll that out.
Yeah, beautiful, man. No, I love it. And if we roll over to Brendo, man, you owned your own home for a very, very long time. Well, you did, and then you went through a rent vesting route. Man, why did you decide to go through that rent vesting route when you first moved up from Newey to northern New South Wales?
Yeah, really good question. So we got in very early. We purchased when we were 19, and we kind of looked at that PPOR as a bit of an investment. So that was a stepping stone from there to get into the property we loved or the one that we wanted to be in forever. But we quickly realized.
Why did you? Can I just ask real quick, man? Is like why at 19 or how at 19 were you doing that? Was it your old boy with his a bit of, or was it a chippy background, or what made you look at it from an investment perspective as opposed to just a house as a first home buyer?
What we could afford. So we always looked at that property as that was never going to be the forever property. But we're like, oh, well, if we can get in now, if that grows, then we can sell that down, get into the next one. Worked out pretty quickly that didn't work, that strategy. Sold the PPOR and then purchased a couple more. And then when we moved up here, we rented. So we rented for about 7-8 years, done some investing, some development, stuff like that, made the good cash flow, bought a PPOR. That was nowhere near what we could afford, so that we could keep investing, and now we're still investing on the side of that as well.
Yeah, so you kind of flipped it a little bit. I mean, even though you aren't rent investing, you also didn't go to your max, because obviously your max was significantly more than what you ended up buying the place.
Correct.
Bought a renovator, so you can force some value on it.
Yep.
But it was also in a place where it was actually quite hard to find a rental too, right? And you're with the kids and obviously being in the school catchments and whatnot. I remember us having the conversation because you were like tossing up. We were looking at similar sort of price PPRs, and they were pretty lofty, man, in terms of what a really nice house down there gets you. You opted to go for the renovation strategy, still in a nice position, but being able to renovate the house, but then leaving yourself enough serviceability over to obviously go and start doing some other deals and investing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We put our goals on paper and we were like, this is where we need to be or where we want to be passive income wise. Is this PPO going to hold us back from getting there? No. Cool. Well, we can get in. We got in at bottom, like as low as we could get in at. And then kept that serviceability so we could keep going.
That's 7 years of renting though. How much action did you do? People would know from the poddy we did with you several months ago. Like obviously you made some pretty big ticket money with some devs that you did a few years ago, 2020, 2021. Like what were you doing in that 7 years of renting though during that period?
So we had an investment there that was giving us some good rent or two at that time. And that covered a lot of our rent in Kingy.
Okay.
Which was good. And then we were developing as well. So we like flipped 2 blocks, flipped another 2 properties. So we were making cash that way. So we weren't just renting for the sake of renting. We were renting to get to the point where we could sell down some assets and then buy.
Yeah, sweet. So even you look at that as well, Jimmy, is like you did the rent vesting for 7 years. Like you did it, you invested, you obviously had other investments as well, plus you did active developments. And then even though when you made the decision to buy the primary residence, because of effectively what you made in those 7 years of rent vesting, and then you still bought under capacity as well, but it allowed you to get into a position where you still could buy the primary residence, but then keep building the journey as well. And Lukey and I as well, we kind of build this in with some of the clients with their strategies. They're like, I want to go as hard as I can for the next 5 years.
Yep.
And then I've told the missus or I've told the hubby or whatever, we'll go as hard as we can for 5 years. And then we'll probably sell off what we bought at the very start. JT's got the same strategy here as well. And then we're going to buy a primary residence. We'll just see what we can get at that time. So we can get a bit of, the kids might be at a certain point in school or whatever, or maybe it gets them into a certain primary school, a certain high school, whatever it is at that time frame. And then they're like, but what we'll do is we'll build to this point and then we'll transition, get this. And then we build, the second part of the strategy will come in off the back of that as well. And it's, man, I think it's an interesting thing because it's typically always when kids are involved, you know what I mean? Like because of that schooling side of things too. But I think it depends on where you are, because if you're still able to rent in those areas and you're early in the journey, like this is the difference, right? Just because you got kids doesn't mean to go and buy in that area because you need to from that side. Yep. Like if we listen to Brendo's story, he did the hard yards for 7 years, renting in an area where he wanted to live, significantly costing less than the ownership of it, but then was able to build wealth in the background at the same time as well.
100%. And got the capacity to keep building wealth as well. So if we were at that point where we couldn't build wealth anymore, we would not have bought that PPO.
Because I remember we had that conversation at the time.
Sammy, you're a classic example. I mean, your story, your first property was your own unit, which was your primary place of residence. And the reason why you did sell it was because you knew that it was going to increase your serviceability and get you into the really accelerated accumulation. I mean, that example there alone almost debunks that rent money is dead money. Because clearly, if you didn't make that move, you wouldn't be in the position you're in today.
Yeah,
and that's
100%.
just a perfect example, especially when you're starting out. It wasn't as if you were 30 properties in. I mean, what was it? 5 properties?
Seven. When I sold that, it was 7. And I think this was the interesting thing was like that was my serviceability cap. And when I sold that, and at the time I was actually living in a different primary residence. I was living in the second build that I did. So I was still holding the original PPR, the unit. And then I built the second one. I was still living in that. And I sold the first one, the unit. I rented the house or the build. And then I went and rented myself. and it was a game changer for serviceability. It was game on when I did that. So it's funny, man. It's like all these different little levers you sort of got to pull. But then ever since I did that, and that was the transitionary period, man, that's where I pretty much haven't stopped from there. And it's funny how much it does increase your serviceability. And when you understand from a creative lending perspective how we can actually stretch that even further than just being like a direct, okay, it's $150,000 or $200,000 bump, but like how can we stretch that? And that's at a small loan amount, you know what I mean? Like at an average house price these days, we're probably talking like in terms of a primary residence compared to the investment, that it could be a significant difference of transitioning into rent vesting instead. It could be an extra property, 2 properties, something like that. So I think this is the thing, man, where like, you have to understand the strategy intimately. You have to understand where you're coming from, how much you're starting with, what position you're in right now, how much capital have we got, and what is the goal? What is the strategy? And so often, if you're very, very early in the journey, this can be a really, really key weapon in the arsenal to achieve a really, really good result.
I think that what you said there is really key. The goals are so important. And I can tell you a lot of clients that we work with, in that 20 to 25 age bracket, they definitely don't see rent money as dead money. A lot of them, their goals are they can't afford the catchment for the school they want to send their kids to. They don't actually have kids yet, but they've sat down, they know their goals. They say, I want my kids to go to this school. I can't afford that catchment right now. So I'm going to rent, but I know within the next 5 to 10 years, that's where we're going to look to have kids. And we want to, once we have kids, be able to go and buy in that catchment, and that's their goal. So for some people that don't have kids, or, they don't really want a specific catchment, it doesn't matter to them. But you know what? For some people, it does.
Well, you know what as well, though, man, is like I probably wouldn't even pigeonhole it to like 20 to 25s. If anything, I'd probably say that's the smallest bracket. You're probably realistically looking at it could be anywhere between 25 to 45, because anyone in that bracket, whether they've had kids and like, okay, in the next 5 years they're going to be going, I want them in this sort of catchment, this sort of school, or or I'm thinking about having, or when I have them, whatever. I think it's one of the things. It's more when people get that little bit further along the journey, and that's where it's so often it's when they're actually thinking about it and they're like, shit, I have like 5 years until I need them to fall into this catchment, or 7 years or something, because we're about to start trying whatever. So, man, I think it's so prudent across the board with this thing. And it's so often that bracket you're talking about, that 20 to 25 and 25 to 30, that's a time where you can make so much change in your life in that time window that most people don't realize until they're in their 30s. And so many people in their 30s don't realize, like so many people don't even realize until they're in their 40s. So if you're in any of those brackets, I mean, even in the 40s, people in the 50s, it's always relative, right? But especially that 20s bracket, like if you're listening to this and you're like, oh yeah, maybe this, maybe that, I still want to own the primary residence. Man, if you're on the journey to start investing and you've got this growth mindset and you're trying to do all these things, I guarantee you what you're living in right now as a primary resident, you're going to outgrow it in the next couple of years. Absolute guaranteed. And then the next couple of years, you're going to outgrow the next one you would be able to buy. Renting where you want to live, you can rent substantially cheaper than what that mortgage is going to cost you to actually hold that property. And then as you grow in terms of your mindset and in terms of what you really want out of the portfolio and out of your life and lifestyles, for one, you'll be able to just step it up every 2-3 years. You might pay an extra $200-$300 in rent for going to a better suburb and a better house in those areas. But then what will also happen is you're building your wealth at the same time, because you haven't put the anchor in the water that's going to hold you back. You're still leveling up the portfolio at the whole time. So then when that time does come, they go, no, you know what? Well, we're about to have kids, and in the next 5 years, this is sort of catchment, or we've had kids, and in the next 5 years, sort of catchment. This is where you can start to plan around it from that side, but you've built out the foundation. So then you can make that decision and buy the stonker in that area, not the little cheap fibro shack, or rent the little cheap fibro shack to fall into the catchment. You're buying the fucking palace. You know what I mean? And you're living in the best house in that area that you really want to be in, which might be 10 years or whatever for the kids' tuition turnaround. So I think this is one of those things, man. It's like, you do the hard yards now, and you do those hard yards early. This is where the world's your oyster, man. And you literally can do this stuff on the side. We look at young Bailey, that we had his ep not that long ago. 3 properties in 12 months, you know what I mean? Like, from changing a paradigm shift and changing his mentality over a 3 to 6 month window, bought his first deal, sold a ute, bought the first deal, and then built off the back of that as well. So much can be created when you actually get out there, go hard, push hard early, and create something significant. And in that time capsule that you're talking about, that is the best time to do it, because the risk is not there yet.
I think people need to really get clear on what dead money really means, right? Because most people think dead money with rent, well, you're not getting any benefit out of it, right? But clearly we know that we're getting a lot of serviceability out of it. But I think a lot of people that aren't educated, if they go out and buy the house first of all, and let's just say they're buying their primary place of residence and that doesn't increase, well, the dead money, I mean, the cost of interest of owning a primary place of residence, the interest portion is essentially dead money. I mean, how are you getting any benefit of that? You're paying off a bit of the principal, but you're actually paying dead money. And if you're locked into a 30-year mortgage, how much dead money are you actually paying?
Yeah.
If you make the contradiction or the contrast to what our clients do, they're actually investing first to have a much larger deposit to, if they did want to buy a humble primary place of residence and be debt-free, they're going to be saving on a shit ton of interest. So if they did rent for 5 years, that wasn't dead money. They've saved a whole lot more on the dead money than their actual house.
And I think it always comes down to like, what else are you doing? You know what I mean? It's like, what else are you doing?
But I think
And
just
it's as
people
simple as
getting
that.
confused. They're thinking, oh, no, it's automatically dead money. Well, no. If you've got a primary place of residence flat and you're locked in for a 30-year mortgage, work
the
out
same
how
as,
much interest
it's the same
you're
as the
paying.
people saying that they can't buy into the market anymore. You know what I mean? And it's like the entitlement of, I can't afford it anymore. It's too expensive. Oh, the market's fucked. Everyone's fucked the market, all the rest of it. Do you work 2 jobs? Do you work 3 jobs? I did when I bought my first property. You know what I mean? Like, why do you deserve to buy it if you haven't gone through all the hard shit to get there first as well? And it's the same as this. Do you deserve a Ferrari? Do you deserve a mansion, a Lamborghini, whatever it is down the track? Do you deserve any of that? Well, have you done the hard work? Have you done the side hustle? Have you done the second job, third job to get you in the first deal? Have you then either worked with a team or learned how to do this and go through this process and actually build that out? Have you done that? Or have you just sat on the sideline like a fucking victim on a single income, whinging about how fucked the housing market is and not made any changes? And it's as simple as that. You can either play the victim and play that card, which I've got no time for you at all, or, and anyone listening to this, if you've got people around you that are like that, you probably should really rethink if you want to spend time around them because they're going to drag you down. Or are you going to get the second job? Are you going to figure out how you get to this first deal, first property? Put this side of things out of the equation. Think about how you're actually going to grow and build this thing out and then make it happen for you. And this is the thing, anyone can build this shit. I look at everyone at the table here. We've all suffered losses. We've all gone through shit. We've all had stumbles, had failures, had learnings. That's the thing, all the failures and all the losses, they're only that if you don't learn from it. But you take your learnings and you grow from it, and then you just get better and better and better. And then you level up and get bigger and better and bigger and better. But if you're just playing the victim mentality, I can't do it because I think there's a single income. Blah, 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 house prices are too expensive. There is always a way through it. There is always a way to create a solution with this. And this is where I think you just need to be pragmatic with it, block out the naysayers, filter out the dirty water and the bullshit from the side, and only focus on what you can actually do to change your outcome moving forward. Second job, third job, save the deposit, buy the property. Don't be silly with it, buy the right one, right property, right price, right location, all these things, and then level up your outcome.
I think with that, you with 3 years to save your first deposit.
Yeah.
No one wants to save for 3 years. They get a 12 months in. They're like, oh, we saved for 12 months. We're going good. And they go, oh, we did such a good job. Let's go on a holiday. And they spend the savings.
Yeah.
And then the next year they do the same thing. But to go and do 3 years of consistent sacrifice, or even 4 or 5, you set your mind to a goal. Yes, it may take 3, 4, 5 years to get into a goal. And no, you can't outsave the market. But if that's what you need to do to get into something and get those funds compounding, you need to stick to the goal. You can't and we've talked about, distractions all the time. You can't deviate from that along the way.
Yeah, for sure, man. Nah, dude, I think it's a great thing, a great point to make of like if you make a game plan, you make a commitment to it. I've said it to people before. Get me one deposit. I'll build you a portfolio. Do they ever get me the deposit? It's a 50-50, right? Some of them do, and they do, and then they fucking, here we go. Bailey, 12 months, 3 properties. I told him, get me the deposit. Sell the ute. If you're serious about this, sell the ute. He sold the ute. Because we had a conversation about his mate telling him, that'll never be us driving the Lamborghini. Why? And he told me, why? Why won't that be you? Oh, but how are we ever going to do it? I don't have any money. Oh, it took me 3 years, 5 years to pay off the ute, whatever. Okay, sell the fucking ute. How much is the ute worth? 50 grand. How much you got in the bank? 15 grand. All right, sell the ute. Let's go buy a property. Oh, sell the ute. Don't make an excuse. There's your asset. Sold the ute, bought the first property. 12 months later, 3 deals. However much he's got in equity. Hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equity, $500,000, whatever the hell it is. You know what I mean? Like these are the results you can get. But do you want to do the hard things to get it? Or do you want to play the victim? And these are the things that you just have to push. And when these things come along and the rent money is dead money, it only is if you're not taking action.
And for Bailey, if he had his own primary place of residence, let's just say he was able to get into it, he wouldn't have been able to buy it.
Definitely not.
So that just puts this particular myth to bed, because clearly now he's bought 3 properties. and he's starting a really successful business. He's actually, his whole mindset is there's such a snowball effect with his journey, which is awesome, right?
100%.
And he's got such a growth mentality of what is possible just on the back of that one decision. So when people would say, oh no, rent money is dead money, well, look what this guy's done by not owning his house, by being in a position where he is rent vesting, and the snowball effect of that. I mean, there are just so many examples. We could talk about this all day.
100%.
But I think the big point, and you hit it right on the head at the start, if you're not doing anything with that extra money by renting, then yes, red money is dead money. But if you're actively investing it and using that money to better use, then do the numbers. Even if you take the emotion out of it, right? Do the numbers. Clearly, it's going to work out in your favor.
100%, man. 100%. Boys, anything else to throw in? We went a little bit, it was like a train track that went whoop, 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 went around the mountain.
Pretty straightforward. I mean, even just the last thing, even I think people think, emotionally, I want to be in my own home, right? Ask yourself, how does that make you in a better position, right? Let's just say you are going to buy your own house. Like you just emotionally, I've got kids, I want my own home. Okay. Is that getting you closer to a more comfortable life? I don't know. I don't think it is because you're just a slave to that. You're not going to do anything.
But the last 8 years that I haven't been a homeowner for, that I have been a rent investor, has been the most explosive in my portfolio. Literally the first year after I did it, I think I was at 6 properties. I bought 6 properties and I think I bought another 6 or 8 or something like that. And then it was like 10 a year. You know what I mean? Like, because I learned a lot of things along the way, which obviously we help a lot of clients with and everything within their journeys as well. But this was the thing, man. Like I hit the wall, and when I hit that ceiling again, I was like, I never want to hit that again. So I learned the lesson on the way through. I pulled a few little levers, like I said before, sold the original PPR, rented the current PPR, went out and rented myself. Game changer. Learned what stuck me, learned how to unstuck myself, and then played that next game moving forward and allowed me to keep moving and pushing hard. And yeah, man, the growth since then. And if I had just gone, no, I never want to sell I don't want to sell. I never sell property. You never sell property, right? So I'm never going to sell the first one, and I'm going to keep living my primary residence. Again, we wouldn't be at this we wouldn't be having this conversation. We wouldn't be sitting in this room, and I don't know how much further along I'd be because I would have been stuck for a few years at that point.
The amount of clients that have mentioned from school and property students the Unstuck Yourself episode. Yeah. That is a game-changing episode.
Huge.
That a lot of people have said, and you've said this, and they've said it to me as well, and I'm sure they've said it to you boys. That module alone, that video alone was worth the actual fee.
Yeah.
So clearly you got options out there, folks. Nothing is impossible.
100%, man. 100%. Boys, anything else to sign off with? Everyone good?
Good.
All good.
We are...
I think we've nailed that one.
Myth officially busted. Boys, thank you for jumping on, joining us. For those of you who flew in, thank you very much for making the journey and the trip. Listeners, I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, please make sure you send it on to someone else that might take some value out of this thing, whether it's your grandma or your mum or your dad or whatever, one of your friends who's selling you the same bullshit. Listen to this thing again if you're sitting half on the fence and convince yourself around changing your life, changing your outlook, changing your outcome. And hopefully you can help change someone else's as well by sending this on. If you haven't followed us yet, please hit the follow button or the subscribe button on your favorite listening platform. If you haven't left us a 5-star review yet, please make sure you jump on there and you leave us a 5-star review. Until next week, guys, until next month, guys, with the next Mythbusting episode. But until next week, guys, we'll be back for another Scouting Australia podcast.